Hello guys, welcome back. And today I'm going to be talking about the Glen Gulutzan firing. They told us, the Calgary Flames said that they had relieved him of his duties, which basically means that he was fired. Now, of course, Gulutzan with the Calgary Flames this season had 84 points, 11 points out of the playoffs. And, of course, they were in a playoff spot for a long time that season. Basically dipped a little bit harder than the All-Stars, but again, dipped pretty hard. And it's just sad to see because they were in a prime playoff spot and looking pretty good, except a few injuries like Mike Smith happened. I mean, their defense was a lot worse than we were expecting it to be, and a lot of things just collaborated together in the last couple of months to just make a huge downfall. And, of course, a few teams rised up above them. Now, not to get lost in this whole news, a couple of other assistant coaches were relieved of their duties as well as Gulutzan, so they're kind of shaking things up a little bit. The Calgary Flames are making a lot of moves here, which I think is pretty smart because obviously it hasn't been working this season, and I don't think that it's really a big surprise there. And Calgary, I think, needed a shake-up here. Even though Gulutzan got them to the playoffs last season, I still think that they kind of needed a shake-up, and it's kind of obvious, of course, over the last couple months of the season with their collapse, and there's a lot of problems and a lot of injuries, and there's a lot of clutch, I guess, non-clutch injuries happening. There's a lot of things conglomerating together. I think that obviously it was a good decision for the Flames. Even though he isn't necessarily a bad coach in my opinion, I still think that he isn't exactly the right fit for Calgary. And it might be sad that he's going, but at least we got the famous story of him throwing the stick up to the second row of the practice facility. That was hilarious watching that, and at least we got that story from all of this, right? But again, I do think this is the right move for Calgary, moving on, having a new era for their franchise, and it hasn't really worked throughout the whole season. Even though they were in a playoff spot for quite a long time, they were just barely clinging to that playoff spot for a long time. They had some spots where they were looking really good, of course some bad spots like any team, but of course that collapse the last couple of months really exposed their problems. Their defense was never really great the whole time. I expected their defense to be top 5 at least. That defense was looking amazing. Now, there's a couple of injuries, but all in all, the defense didn't perform all that well at all. And their offense was good, but the depth wasn't really where it needed to be. Again, there wasn't too much talent on that depth, but they still needed a lot more goal scoring than what they got. The top guys were still fantastic, but a couple of injuries prevented them from being a top-tier team on the offense, and of course the depth was not good at all. Then we switched over to the goaltending, and Mike Smith was good. He was decent, wasn't fantastic. I think he was like leading in saves for a long time. He was doing fantastic for the Flames, but of course he got injured, and of course the team kind of derailed after that. So it was a big injury. Even though he was playing well, that injury basically derailed the team. Now I'll go for the last few seasons as a coach for Gulutzan. We'll start with the 11-12 seasons, and of course starting with Dallas, that's why I'm wearing this. He had a 42-35-5 record. Again, I don't think he was good enough to make the playoffs, but again, 42 wins is decent. I don't think that's enough to make the playoffs, and I don't think they did make the playoffs, but again, it wasn't terrible. Then they go to the 12-13 season. He had a 22-22-4 record. Now I wasn't following the Stars then, wasn't even following the NHL then, but I do think that he was fired mid-season. I think that was what happened. And, yeah, basically the only way you could explain that, but he didn't have that great of a record even then, and getting fired, of course, I think that was the right move there. Then he was an assistant with Vancouver for like 3 years. Then he goes to 16-17 with the Calgary Flames as a head coach for the first time in a few years with the Calgary Flames, and he has a 45-33-4 record, able to make the playoffs, just barely sneaking in. I think it was a 7th seed, right above the Nashville Predators. Of course, we're in the Stanley Cup, but we'll not get into that. And this year, he had in the 17-18 season, 37-35-10. Of course, a little bit of a drop-off there. And I think it might be best for Gulutzan and the Flames. I think it's best for both teams here. Gulutzan, I think he would want to have a new environment, even though he has had some success, of course, last season. I think that it might be best for him to be in someplace new, maybe not in a head coach job, may not be open to him, but an assistant job maybe in the works there. I think that he would be suited for a good team there, and that would be a good situation for him. But for the Flames, I do think this is a good opportunity to get some youthful, get another guy who could work a lot better than Gulutzan could. And the Flames might be in a similar situation as the Dallas Stars, wanting a guy who's youthful in that coach spot that can develop guys quickly. They got a lot of guys that have kind of been busts over the years. There's guys like Jankowski, Sam Bennett. There's lots of guys in that organization that are still playing in the NHL, but not realizing their full potential, and a young guy could realize that. Of course, the NHL is focusing on youth, and youth is working in the NHL right now, so the faster that teams like the Flames realize that and are able to put that in the coaching perspective, I think will work out for their benefit in the long run. But focusing on Glen Gulutzan, I do think that at the very least he can get an assistant job in the NHL. I do think that he was qualified qualified for that option. I think he would be good there. Best suited for the assistant job. I don't think that he'd be bad as a head coach, but I think the assistant job, a little bit less of the spotlight on him, would work a lot better for him and for the teams that he goes to in general. But yes, it is a win-win situation for both parties involved. Flames would want somebody else. I think that after this season, there is an obvious spot that I think they want to fill in coaching that I think Gulutzan can't really fill for them. I think for Gulutzan, it may not have worked for Calgary, may not have worked with Calgary for him. He might want to go somewhere new, and I think somewhere new could benefit him a lot more. Now, all I want is for him to not go to the Dallas Stars. Can we just not make that happen, please? I've had enough of us going to the past. Can we just not do this anymore, please? But that's good, guys. Like and subscribe, and not ring that bell if you haven't. Tell me down below what you think of this move for the Flames and for Gulutzan. Where would Gulutzan find himself next season, and where are the Flames? Who will they hire in the offseason? I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.